Okay, so welcome everybody to another episode of ZoukCast. We're live again. Today we are half an hour earlier because we needed to make a proper time for our special guest to be able to go to class later. And as every week, I have my usual suspect and co-host, Nymph. How you doing, Nymph?
I'm fine. How are you?
Fine, also. And the special guest today is a really big name in the Zouk scene. She is Sofie from Prague. Hello, Sofie. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you?
Fine, also. Sofie, you know that we had a previous episode about Prague, and we talked a little bit about the scene, and we had Brandon as a guest on the episode. So we wanted to, as we said on the title of the episode, we wanted to talk with the grown-ups, like the people that started the Zouk scene in Prague, and what's their take and their opinion on this matter. So first of all, I want to know a little bit about the history of Zouk in Prague, like how did it begin? Because I know that you were involved in the initial moments of Zouk. So how was the beginning and the birth of Zouk in Prague?
So the beginning of Zouk was not in Brazil. It was in Cuba, actually. While I was studying in Cuba and saw all the Cubans wiggling their booties, and in a way that I fell in love with the authentic way of dancing. It was not about the moves. It was it was not about the steps. It was not about the variations. It was the moment, the feeling, the connection to the other person, living the moment, living the song that was playing at the moment. And when I saw so many talented people, and those were regular people that you would not think that they're dancers or anything. They were just people that were living day by day, listening to the salsa or what reggaeton back then was not that popular as it is now. And I thought, wow, this is something else. It would be so cool if Czechs got the possibility to learn this, because to me this is dance. So this is where the idea of opening a dance studio was born. Later, my dream after Cuba was Brazil, and I didn't even know Zouk existed. I went there for the samba, for the song, for the beaches, for carnival. I didn't know Zouk existed. So when I met Zouk towards the end of my stay there, it was like, wow, this is so cool. It was more Lamba Zouk. Zouk that we see today, that we dance today, had less to do with the Zouk that was danced like 10, 15 years ago. We all know that. So
we're talking about what year, more or less, when you were in Brazil?
This was 2004. This was 2004. When I lived in Brazil 2003, 2004. And so I spent over a year, or about a year in Brazil, looking for people, qualified people that I could take back home, or that I could get together with to spread the authentic types of dance, because I thought that is really cool. Because when I went back to Prague after Cuba, I was like, this is really sad. A Czech person teaches some step variations that he learned or she learned from another Czech person who learned it from another Czech person who learned it from some instructional video. And I'm like, to me, after having spent a year in Cuba, I was like, that's not dance. So I wanted to, my idea was like, if it made me feel that way, I want to help other people feel that way. So in Brazil, that was not as easy as I thought, because either the person was a great dancer, but he was not a good teacher, or he was a good teacher, but he would not be a good performer, or he was a good performer, he was a person that I could not trust.
Yeah, because
So
they're different abilities.
they're different. I'm sorry.
There are different abilities, like to teach, to perform, and to be a good dancer. There are different aspects that not everybody can be good at everything.
Sure. Like if you're a good performer, it doesn't mean that you're a good teacher, and
Yeah,
vice
absolutely.
versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or if it was a good teacher, the body was totally unpresentable to be to talk about discrimination. I was just looking for if I was to invest in someone in that way, I wanted to start as favorably as I could, obviously.
Of course.
So that's when I met Carlos, my future husband back then and partner, and who was a friend of my friend, and then my neighbor. And back then in 2003, four, he was skinny, I was thicker, and I thought we had nothing to do together. We started hanging out together, we started dating, and I didn't see him as a person, even though I saw his teaching abilities and performing abilities. I was like, we don't fit together. Physically or the style, whatever. And I told him that. He didn't like that, and I said, I'll show you that I can adjust or what, so that I can perform with you, or he showed me another side that I didn't see until then. So he showed ambition, he showed um, potential to be a hardworking person that doesn't lose focus.
Okay.
And when I proposed, okay, well, come to Prague with me. After a third offer, I was like, this is the third time. If he says no again, then I'll take it as no, like definite no. And he said yes. So we went back to Prague, and of course, in Prague, I was known for salsa.
Okay.
So we went through salsa, of course, and it was a good time because around that time, the salseros were getting tired of the same old thing. They wanted some stimulation, and we worked with salsa, of course, but then we started introducing samba de gafieira, bolero, forró, and other types of Brazilian dances. And in Brazil, they do like a tri combination, which is called dança de salão, ballroom dances, not the competitive version, but their ballroom dances that they go out and they dance in bars and in dance places. And that's bolero, soltinho. Soltinho is kind of like a jive, and it comes from foxtrot. I'm sorry, not from foxtrot. It's kind of like a jive, from ballroom jive, and so bolero, samba de gafieira, and jive. And I said, you know what? Let's switch the three combination. Let's take out soltinho, because it looks too much like jive, which is a dance that people learn here when they're adolescent.
They already know.
It's very similar, so it might not be as interesting. Let's put Zouk. No, Carlos, I know the scene, I know the people. Those are like tired salseros, and Zouk, after, if I simplify it to the highest degree, after all, it's 1 2 3 1 2 3, just like salsa, 1 2 3 1 2 3. It's a similar principle. He's like, no, yes, no, yeah. So I convinced him to the three combination, the combination of the three dances would be samba de gafieira, zouk, and bolero. We went like that for several months, maybe a few years, and people really were getting interested in Zouk. But what happened? They were interested in Zouk, which was easier than samba de gafieira and more fun than bolero. So they would invest into learning Zouk, but they didn't lose time doing samba de gafieira and bolero. So in 2008, it was still kind of slow. In 2008, I don't know whose idea it was, but we did like a national level weekend. We call it a festival, but the name was Go Go Zouk. If I translate it, it would be like let's go for Zouk or yes Zouk, something like that.
Okay.
That we had Brazilian instructors that were teaching in our studio, so it was on national level. And we offered Zouk classes, samba de gafieira classes, and everything. It was very cheap for our students. They had discount and everything. It was just to kind of, here it is. This is our last chance to kind of give Zouk a chance. And it was October 2008. I was pregnant, almost giving birth to my little son. And it was a huge success, and I would call that festival, that weekend, like a mark in Zouk history. That was like a important milestone, because that's when we finally gave up and said, okay, let's just open Zouk classes. And from then on, it just boomed.
So actually, it was your insistence that brought Zouk into Prague, because he was not into the teaching Zouk, but you convinced him that Zouk was needed, and that's why people got into Zouk in Prague.
Well, he liked Zouk too, but it's fun when people say when Carlos is perceived as big Zoukero, because he was a big sambista. He was a samba dancer. And our first, maybe he was like, the teachers in school that teach you English, they're like 3 lessons ahead of you. So he might have been 3 lessons ahead of me, something like that. I'm exaggerating, but we basically started together. Our first private lesson was with André Negrão, who I am hosting in Prague now at my studio. And that's where we studied, we rehearsed, we trained, and we learned together. So he turned into a big Zoukero, and it's funny because to convince him in the beginning to even like, come on, believe in Zouk, like people will like it, they will. So
it's funny how small the Zouk world is, because André Negrão is also the teacher of Luciano, the guy that you're working right now.
Yeah, they're really good friends, and then Luciano ended up teaching in his studio as well. So that's probably how I got to work with Andre, through Luciano. Because now, after so many years in this world, I don't only look at how well you wiggle it or how well you teach your class, but also what kind of person you are. And after working with so many Brazilians, know that working with dancers, it's not only about the dance, that the actual dance is, maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of the whole potential of good collaboration. So it's also being responsible, it's also being hardworking, it's just being humble enough. So there are more aspects to a successful dancer, Brazilian dancer in Europe outside of Brazil. So, yeah. I skipped the whole part of the studio. 2006, we opened. That was my big dream. That was like since Cuba, where I studied in 2000. It was my big dream to have my own dance studio. And since I got together with, it became Brazilian dances or Latino dances became the main focus. I didn't really care about what kind of dances it would be, but I just wanted, I had that I wanted to have a dance studio. And so it ended up being a Latino dance studio. And with time, salsa died out and we focused on Brazilian dances. In 2006, we opened a first Brazilian dance focused studio in the Czech Republic, so I'm proud of that. I mean, it doesn't mean that much, but after that, people, I think it was like purring the idea, like, let's get out of the clubs where the class is, you don't have a place to change. It has to be late at night. So it became more of a, it became a regular thing. How would I call it? Ever since people started opening their own studios, offering regular classes, and the level went up by the possibilities, the more opportunities to take parts in different regular classes.
So let's go back, or let's come back from the past to the present. How is now the scene with all these different studios that were open, and talking about what Brandon said, that the scene is like broken in different groups? How is now the scene in Prague?
Well, that's very unfortunate, but he is right about when he says that the scene is broken. How I see it, I might not be a very a totally objective person because I was at the very birth and I see it from a different perspective. I know all the people that teach now, or all the people that have anything to do with influencing the Zouks. I know them when they were learning their first steps, because in the beginning everyone had to go through our studio. And of course it was very hard for me to, I mean personally, because the dance studio, bringing the Brazilian dance scene into the Czech Republic, it was very personal. It was not just a business. Of course, we could earn money out doing it, but to me it was that was like a great passion. That was something that I felt like I can't do job. I couldn't work if I didn't believed in it, didn't like it, not like it. If I didn't feel passionate about it. So of course, when after a few months, that happens everywhere. It's not just Prague. After a few months, people drop out and they open their own courses. Or people would tape us separately during festivals or classes, and then they would teach the same variations. It was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I take that very easily because I didn't see it as a business. Carlos would always tell me, like, of course everyone's gonna go selfishly after their own goals. So they're gonna do what's best for them, not best for you. But to me, I didn't have to be the only teacher, but I was just sad about people that did not get yet to the qualified level and that they were actually doing more harm. You know what I mean? Carlos was arguing like, just let them do it because they will help spread the dances, which to a certain degree was true, because there were audiences that we could not reach. So the people that wanted to teach as well, they've reached different kind of audiences. At the end, it did amplify the scene and the interest for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was that Brandon and I talked about that. Well, but how do you go about, okay, this person spreads the Zouk, but what kind of Zouk does he or she spread?
Yeah, there's
Is it
always
actually?
this tension between quality and spreading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and what do you do about it? So, Brendan and Carlos had an intention they had ambition to go to classes of such people, um, and to intimidate them, to like, okay, well, maybe you are better than I think, so let me see your. And of course, they would not like that. It created huge tension. Also, the division might be, some people might say that it was when Carlos and I separated on the work field as well, that it created a big scar, that it divided the scenes. I personally don't think it was just that. I think it started way earlier when, um, well, in the beginning, we would bring couples from abroad. The scene it was much more rare to get couples from abroad. It was not so common to travel to congresses. There were not so many congresses. I mean, the Barcelona Congress by Daniel and Ticia, when they started, it was probably like, wasn't it the first one?
Yeah,
Like
it
they
was.
started like 9, 10 years ago. So that's around the time that we were starting. So it was not like, oh, I don't need to learn in regular courses. Let me go to festivals. People would not go. So we did most of the work. We did the fundamentals. We did the we were creating the basics, the fundamentals in people. And so the concept started to grow. More and more people were organizing events. More and more people would come to Europe and share their events with the European scene. And now, when you look around, there's at least 5 couples touring Europe, just because they I think that they think that it's easy to earn money teaching Zouk here in Europe. They just come here and they offer themselves often for expenses, which, again, it has two sides. One side is that you see different things, you get exposed to different things, but on the other hand, it just it handicaps the work, the local teachers that are trying to work slowly and to implement the fundamentals in you. And people start going regular classes because they're more boring or whatever, because they want to speed up the process, and they go to weekend workshops or to festival. Yes.
There's a question. How do you prevent like the curious situation? Do you have any advice to prevent this happening or in the future?
Okay, so what I think with you mean touring artists?
Yeah, artists or organizers, teachers also.
I would talk to the organizers. I would talk to the people that actually invite teachers like that, and to think twice about, to research what kind of couple that is. Is the class a good class? Do they have good information to pass on? Or is it just a couple that's going to come and pass on few steps, few variations? It's much easier to come from Brazil and during a weekend workshop teach you how to do a complicated or like really expensive variation. But the important part of the work, the technique, the fundamentals, the idea, the main ideas of Zouk, it's not so interesting, right? It's more important, but it's not so interesting. So maybe to educate, the organizers should have more they should think about it more, like whom they invite. Because if all these couples see that get work that easily, they'll stop coming eventually. They keep coming because they see that it's easy. They come and they stay for 2, 3 months. They live at other people's places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and as for scene division, I've talked to several people about that, and in Holland they told me, yeah, it happened here too.
Yeah.
It's not. I think that the more exposure the Czech people got, it kind of got saturated. Oh, back then when we brought Daniel Leticia, but Leo and Leo were still working together. We had Alex de Carvalho and Daniela, and people were so excited to learn from them. Also, those were good couples. They had information to pass. It was not just like, oh, let me show you like this really cool variation. Those were couples that had things to offer and to pass on. And people were eager to learn with them. And we stimulated that interaction. Of course, Gilio was there also in the beginning. Cadu and Larissa, that were making a huge effort to be able to come to you from Australia and share their passion as well. So now it's so easy to travel to all over the world to Zouk congresses. It's so there's so many teachers touring and even locals that say that the scene is saturated and it's harder. It becomes so competitive that you're like, well, I can't teach like slowly and like trying to with my methodology because people want it faster. People want to dance today. So that would be addressing that issue. And going back to division in Czech scene, I think that there's not much interest to work together because everyone wants that little piece of fame, I think.
Talking about fame, because I wanted, before the episode ends and we're running out of time, we were talking before when we were preparing the episode with you about the ladies in Zouk and why the fame is always going to the guy. Like, for example, I knew that you have a big part in making the Zouk scene in Prague, but most of the fame, most of the name went to Carlos. Why is that so? Because I've been there in Prague even from the first Congress, and I realized that the soul behind the whole thing was you. But people don't realize of that, and people always give the fame to the guy in the couple. Why do you think is that?
Why did you think that I was behind all that?
Why do I think? First, because I witnessed some of your work, like being there in the Congress, and also because you have a strong personality. You also remind me of my teacher, Leticia. That she is also a strong woman in the couple. And in this part of the Zouk scene, you and Leticia are very alike. Like you are strong personalities, and you get noticed when you are around. So that's why I know that you were like a big important person in the Zouk scene. But why the whole scene is always giving the fame to the guy in all the couples, not only in organizers, but almost every famous couple, the guy is the one that gets the fame, the guy is the one teaching in the class, and the girl is following. And why is that so?
I don't know how it's in other dances, but in the Berlin dances, I think it's a cultural thing because the guy is the guy, the macho. He's the man, And I think it's a big pity because the class is lacking the female point of the, which is very important as well. After all, you watch the women way more than you watch the men when you see a couple dancing. So when it comes to classes, I think it comes from there. I'm not Brazilian, I'm not very submissive. Just because I'm a woman and you're a man, I'm not going to shut up. I'm gonna shut up if I need to shut up because I have nothing to say or whatever. But even in home studio, Carlos and I would get into arguments because he would tell me, "You talk too much," and I'm like, "Well, I have information to give. You know, you don't do that, and there are things that I have to tell them because I have a female perspective and you have a male perspective, and I have female and male because I can lead as well. So I think that it's due to my personality that I'm not as submissive as, I don't want to generalize that Brazilian women are submissive, but it's the way it's done. And so even though they might have the information, it's just a guy's role to teach the class, and they might just, yes, ladies, it's like that, or yeah, you need to do it like that, but the main responsibility goes to the guy. I think it's changing when the women have stronger voices. They do step in more, but very slowly. As Leticia and I are not Brazilian, we are European, strong women. It might be easier for us to speak louder, and I think we also both have passion for the dance, and it's not just us wanting to earn a few euros doing the class. We are about or if I speak for myself, I got into this whole thing for the love of the dance. I wanted to spread it. So if I had another income, I would probably do it for free anyway. So, and as for Carlos, we're pretty equal partners until I got pregnant. So then he said, "I'm not touching you anymore," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" Finally, things started to like, we started to travel abroad, and the first international trip we got offered when I was 3 months pregnant. So I missed that part, and of course, he started to meet other Brazilians, other people that were involved in the dance, in the Zouk scene, and so he would make the contacts, but all the production was left to me, and to me we were a team. So he was better with the smiles, with the talking out loud, and I was the better. Not that I couldn't do it, but to me, the other part was left. The planning, the marketing, the organization. So I took really hard, to be honest, that the Prague Zouk Congress is credited totally to Carlos, because it's part of, that was like a last drop when it comes to our marriage, or separation of our marriage. That was the last drop, and it was like that friggin' Congress didn't help at all. To me, I did most of the work, of course, because it was all the hotels, air flights, planning, just the whole logistic. But of course, no one sees that. No one sees that. Yeah. Now I'm older, that I'm happy. Now, 10 years later, I think that my goal was to spread the Zouk, right? Yeah. And I think that I made that happen. And now a lot of people don't even know who was in the beginning, who did that, why was that, and you know, that's life. I am happy with the fact that that I was in the beginning of it, that I was able to um, to live those 10 years learning, spreading. Um, Now the scene is not at its best. I think it needs some cure, it needs some healing. But but I'm happy if there people know it, and now people travel for Zouk and they can see the whole world and everything. So.
But you know what, Sophie? Now this is record, and we have like 200, 300 people watching. So if they didn't know, now they know that you were involved in that. And also, since we are out of time and you have to go to teach class also, let me thank you very much for being here, because for me, you are one of the most respected people in Zouk, at least for me. And you are one of the dancers that I enjoy. I always remember one particular dance with you in Lloret in the Congress here. Like I was doing some stupid things and you were always smiling to me. Like I remember I put you against the wall, like I was doing some crazy stuff. I don't know if you remember that. And it was so fun to dance with you. Even you are a strong woman and you were leading me in the dance also. But for me, it's a real honor and a pleasure to count you as a friend and to have you here in our little project. So thank you very much, Sophie.
Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak out and share my 10 years in Hanover with the world. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I hope we can have you some other time. And also thanks to Nymph. He's been really quiet today because he's in charge of the chat, and he's always reading the chat. So guys, if you have any question and you can see live the show, you can always write in the chat, and we will try to give your question to the guest. So thank you, Nymph, also for being here.
Yes, thank you too.
See you next week.
Okay.
And next week we have another special guest, Val Clemente from Brazil. He will be here talking about what it takes to be a good teacher, something that we touched lightly today with Sophie, but we will go deeper into the subject next week. And that's all for tonight. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you also next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.